presentation, titled Food Safety Culture and the Magic of Incongruence, comes to us from Wendy Edwards. Wendy has more than 30 years' experience as an auditor, consultant, and in-house quality professional, specializing in high and low-risk food industries. She is currently the head of food safety and quality for a New Zealand-owned business that employs 1,500 people and generates revenues of around 300 million New Zealand dollars. Their manufacturing operations in New Zealand and Australia are SQF certified and export food to 18 countries. In 2019, Wendy was awarded SQF Practitioner of the Year at the SQFI Quality Achievement Awards ceremony. And with that, take it away, Wendy.
Thanks, Mike. Today I wanted to talk about food safety culture and the magic of incongruence. Really, the reason I picked this topic is I remember back when I was auditing, new things would come out and come into the standard, and I recognised that I like to be a bit of an expert in what I'm doing. So when I was auditing and a new topic came out, I felt that perhaps I didn't have enough knowledge, or I couldn't add as much value perhaps as I could where I had a technical background. So really, with food safety culture, I wanted to share with auditors that actually there's a skill set here they already have, and as they learn more about food safety culture, that's wonderful, but they actually already can add value with the skills they have. So really, I just thought we'd start with getting a common understanding of what incongruence is, what it looks like in action, what a food safety professional might do with that knowledge, and finally, how an auditor can add value. So starting with a common understanding of what incongruence is. So I'm going to talk about it from three different angles. So from an individual's perspective, incongruence is that sanity mechanism we have built in that governs our beliefs and our behaviours, and I'll talk a little bit more about that soon. As a food safety professional, incongruence is the magic ingredient that can be used for changing a food safety culture. And yes, one person at a time. It's not a magic bullet, but it's a magic, and you'll see that as it goes through, it's a magic way to drive a food safety culture. And finally, incongruence from an auditor's perspective, it's a honed skill that auditors already have, and it's that that ability to recognise when facts of a situation aren't stacking up with the rest of the story that you're hearing, and that has wonderful value in the world of food safety culture. So to get us started, I thought what I'd do is share with you a flop, really. So not everything goes well, and this was a learning opportunity for me. So this is a story about an experience I had when I joined a new business. And what happened basically, it was my first week on the job. I thought I was great at what I did. I thought I was a technical expert. I came in, there was an issue with operations. A consumer had found something in market. And so I did what I'd always done. I went down and I spoke to the gentleman in operations and said, hey, look, this happened on night shift. Can you let me know if there were any issues that your operators may have been aware of? Share with me so that I can start to look into this investigation. But the response that I got was not the response that I was used to getting. The operator actually got quite cross with me to the point where he complained to my new boss. This is my first week in the job. I was mortified. And he complained that QA were trying to get operations to do his job, to do their job, because QA quality was nothing to do with operations. So that left me a bit puzzled. In my world, obviously, it's quite normal for, well, maybe not obviously, but in my world, it was quite normal for QA and operations to work together. When you found an issue, you spoke to operations. But clearly, for this individual, that was completely abnormal. Quality was nothing to do with him. His job was to make the food, and it was quality's job to sort out any issues that may happen. So essentially, first week in the job, and I'm in a situation where I've gone from thinking I know what I do to being complained against and not knowing what I was doing. So I was a bit mortified. So the thing here I needed to do was just kind of step back and understand, how did that happen? And I guess to put it in context, what I needed to understand was, and this may be similar for many of you with a technical background, is what was my learning style? How had I ended up here? And essentially, when we first all go to school, we learn 2 + 2 = 4. And it's wonderful because it's either true or it's false. And you can get an A+ in that. You can be an absolute expert in 2 + 2 = 4. It's predictable. Whenever you see it, oh, look, there's 2 + 2. Haha, that's going to be 4. It's wonderful. As time goes on, you might get a bit more complex. For me, I ended up down the old chemistry line, and we learned about wonderful things. This is the theory of equilibrium. And so it's wonderful. I know that in any given situation, things will all even out in the end. It's still true, it's false, I can get an A+ in this. It's fabulous. And then time went on and I hit university. And I had my first psychology paper, and I took the old learning that I had, my old way of thinking, and I tried to apply it to my first psychology paper or management paper. But it doesn't work, because in the wonderful world of management or leadership, maybe the theory applies, but maybe it doesn't. And I don't know if you've had an experience with this sort of study, but there's some great theories and you can put context around things, but they're not necessarily true or false. They're just a way of framing what you're seeing or understanding. And it would be fair to say that this was definitely not an A+. I had to have a whole new way of looking and approaching this aspect of my learning. And surprise, well, not surprise, food safety culture actually fits in here. It's not a technical skill set. It's not something that we can get a textbook and know that it's going to be true or false, or we do it always the same way and it's predictable. Food safety culture sits in this fluffy, fuzzy world of management and human beings. So if I think back to the situation where there was my normal and his abnormal, what I needed to do here was I needed to think about the individual. So what I'm going to do is talk about what is incongruence when we're talking about an individual. What's this fuzzy thing? And the easiest way to do that is to take it back to something that I can understand and hopefully that you can visualize. If you take a pie and you stick it in the oven, you set the temperature. And the temperature is fabulous on an oven because it has a thermostat. So if you put it in and you know that that oven is going to maintain a temperature range from a minimum to a maximum, but it will sit in the temperature range that you've set. It's predictable. It's wonderful. Turns out human beings have exactly the same mechanism going on in their heads. So they have an internal set point and it acts a bit like a thermometer, and it's governing their behavior and their beliefs, and it keeps the two in line with each other. So what that means is if I think something is true, for example, if I'm an operator and I think that quality has nothing to do with me, then it's true. It doesn't have to be absolute. It's not 2 + 2 = 4. It's not quantifiable and I have to prove it. I just have to have that perception, and that perception of truth is enough. And whatever my belief is, I'm going to align my behavior so that it matches what I believe to be true. Fascinatingly, if I am faced with conflicting evidence, I get this thing called cognitive dissonance. It's that feeling, you've probably had it, that sinking feeling in your stomach where you almost feel nauseous and you're going, that can't be true. I can't believe I did that, or I can't believe that happened, or that can't be right. That horrid feeling because what you believe to be true and the evidence that you're looking at, they're not matching. So that feeling is incongruence, if you like, from the point of an individual. And we have wonderful mechanisms that actually keep us sane, where we can even filter out evidence that doesn't support what we believe to be true, just so we can stay sane. So what this means is that as an individual, if I'm faced with that level of discomfort, I've only got a couple of choices. I can change my attitude or belief, or I can change my behavior. But one way or another, I need to make sure that my attitude and beliefs and my behavior are lined up so that my truth, that little mechanism that's sitting there keeping me sane, is all aligned. So that's fabulous, but how does that relate back to my story? Where did it all go wrong? Oh, well, see, now it all makes sense. So here's a situation where I've come blundering in and spoken to this operator, and it's my normal, it's his abnormal. What did I do? Firstly, I just didn't recognise that we were in different places on the food safety journey. I didn't even at that point comprehend that that was a thing. So I'm, standing on the right, he's standing on the left, and I just didn't see that at all. My second failure was I didn't appreciate his comfort zone, and I was asking him to do something that was so extreme that he was offended to the point where he complained, because that was him restoring his level of normal. I can't have QA asking me to do things that are nothing to do with operations. So his way to get that sorted was just get that stopped. And the obvious fail for me is that I focused on the non-conformance itself, and because I didn't recognise the other two things, I just missed the coaching opportunity altogether. And what I know is that actually the coaching opportunity is where the magic happens. And we've most likely heard that expression, we want coaches, not cops. This is the reality, is that if we just focus on black and white, 2 + 2 = 4, we're never going to build that food safety culture, because it's in that soft area where actually coaching is what changes things. So there's my learning about food safety culture from an individual level and understanding how incongruence works. But how do I take that now and apply that to a bigger picture, food safety culture as a whole in an organisation? So the first thing I learned, and I was horrified to learn, is I thought that a food safety culture was something that you could go and get, and you would make a plan and you would get this perfect food safety culture. I was horrified to learn actually it already exists. So even if it isn't the one I want, the food safety culture I have is our food safety culture. That food safety culture is the result of all of the combined beliefs, attitudes, and actions of all the human beings that are within an organisation. So really, to change the food safety culture, we need to change the beliefs, the attitudes, and the actions of all of the human beings. So then, okay, armed with that, how am I going to apply that knowledge? Let's go back to the same situation. So there's QA talking to Ops. This is not a situation that Ops is very happy with. I need to change my behaviour. What I need to do is understand and recognise where operations are. I need to move to their point in life, and I need to start the coaching conversation from there to get them comfortable. That's what I did. And the beautiful thing about that then is that the number of issues you start to have start to decline over time, which creates evidence that this new normal is a great way to behave, and it is the new normal. It reinforces a belief that we're doing things the right way. And over a period of time, your new culture starts to evolve. It's a very gentle process, and you need to do it without breaking human beings. It's a much better way to approach it than the blunder. So as a food safety professional, how does this apply? Things that I've learned and things that you can look for when you're coming in and auditing is there a shared vision of the goal. In the beginning, I had assumed that we all understood a good food safety culture to be the same thing, and that wasn't true. So creating a shared vision so we all understand what good looks like is absolutely the very important first step. The next thing that I would expect you to look for when you're coming in to audit me is to challenge me. Have I got evidence of a positive change, but it does need to be at a rate that the business can sustain. So remembering that this buffer around the human being, the invisible line that keeps that congruence happening, it's a sanity mechanism. So if you try to push too much too fast, people will reject it because they can't cope. So you can keep the pressure on, but you can't go too fast because you'll break the human beings. And the third thing that I would expect to be able to show you is a very clear plan of how I'm getting from where I am to where I'm going. Because if we just blunder, if we just do it by accident, it won't happen, and particularly fast, it won't happen in a structured way. So there should definitely be a plan. So let's reflect then on what the value is for you coming at audit, and please don't underestimate the value of this. As an auditor, you are the people who don't see us for a little while and you come back, so you're more likely to see the big change that's going on. And you already have this honed skill of recognising when the facts of a situation aren't going to stack up. So one of the basic things I want you to tell us when you come is our old normal now cringeworthy? Have we come so far in our food safety journey since your last audit that you can look back and say, oh, this is what you were doing last time, look how far you've come? Because you give us perspective. It's extremely valuable, particularly as a food safety professional, to be able to see all those little tweaks that we're making are coming together. The other thing I'd say is that we're going to have, most likely, a belief that our food safety culture is awesome, or a very firm belief of where we've managed to get to on this journey. And it's quite likely, because of your ability to see things a little more clearly, that you will find evidence of some poor food safety behaviour, or perhaps some poor decisions. We do want you to tell us about that, but please do remember that we have a sanity mechanism as well. So just be gentle when you do that, because we will have trouble believing, perhaps, that things haven't happened the way we would have expected. And so finally, before I wrap up, I just wanted to reiterate that as an auditor, you're a very valuable part of building our better food safety culture, and that regardless of whether food safety culture is something that you've already studied, there's definitely value in your presence in looking at this. And so I'm looking forward to actually my next audit. I'm looking forward to showing our auditor what it is we've achieved just over the last year since he's been here. And that really wraps up this talk on food safety culture and the magic of incongruence.
And thank you, Wendy Edwards, for that entertaining and informative look at food safety.